Before Brian left, you said my questions were fair. So let's hear some answers.
I'm sorry, Ben. That was before I realized the state you're in.
What?
You're so angry. I can feel the tension from here. Just relax. Positive energy flow.
All right, I am upset. But despite that, my question still stands. How did you find out about Gene Redland's investigation of Domi?
Why don't we sit down? How about something to drink?
Vanessa?
Please. These uncontrolled emotions are really counterproductive. If we're going to talk and really communicate, you've got to relax and let go of them. Now, shall we sit down? The answer to your question is very simple.
I'm glad.
Actually, I told you the last time we talked. I have sources, means, if you will, of gathering all sorts of information.
You mean like a stool pigeon, a private eye?
Yes, I guess you could say that. In a very real sense, I do have a private eye.
That explains how you found out about Gene. Now tell me, why did you blame me?
Hope I'm not interrupting business.
No, Miss Figgins, I think my mom is just about to tell me where Dr. Phillips is taking her on the honeymoon.
I'm all ears.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I have no idea.
Aw, Dave's making all the plans. How romantic.
No, we just haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, but he'll probably end up making all the plans more by default than anything else.
Well, the way I've been feeling lately, even that sounds good.
Well, I guess the conversation is losing me, so I think I'll just excuse myself, okay?
I will be looking forward to beautifully trimmed hedges when I get home.
You got it.
You must be awful proud of that boy.
He's a pretty good guy. More ways than one. Well, do you have any luck?
Well, that depends on your definition. Both the Ravenswood Country Club and the Carriage House are available, but hardly reasonable.
Surprise.
And they require confirmation within 2 days.
Oh. Well, I'll show these to Dave, but I know what he's going to say. Thanks anyway. I appreciate all your work.
Don't mention it. Just want to help.
Thanks. You really have been a big help.
Well, I guess that's it then. Do you still want me to check into Wellington's?
No. I think I would like you to stay here and have a cup of coffee with me.
Oh, throw in a Danish and you're on.
Done.
Listen, Terry, I don't think I've said anything, but I just want you to know how happy I am for you. I don't think it could happen to a nicer person.
Thank you, Lucy.
Please excuse us, madam, but we must speak with Mrs. Davidson.
I beg your pardon. Lester, what is the meaning of this?
I was ready to leave anyway.
Thank you, Lucille. This is very important. Mr. Wainwright and I have to speak to Terry in private. You do understand.
Oh, yes, Lester, I do understand. Things haven't changed around here, have they?
I'm sorry, Lucy.
Bye, Terry. Don't mention it.
Well, I hope you have a good explanation for your rudeness.
No, it's you who has the explaining to do, Mrs. Davidson, about this.
That's interesting.
What's so funny?
We're both facing the same dilemma, and yet we're reacting so differently.
Please. Explain.
Gene Redland has accused you of something that isn't true, and you're angry. Well, he's also accused myself and my organization of something that isn't true, and I'm not...
And you're not bothered at all. Not in the least.
No, because his accusations are not founded in truth.
Is that because the accusations aren't true? Or because Domi teaches you to ignore unpleasantness?
Oh, very good. My Pilgrim-level students would be astounded by your thinking.
Why didn't you tell Gene that I wasn't the one who blew his cover?
Because I simply didn't know that that was the conclusion he'd reached.
Translation? It was easier to let me take the blame.
No. But as a matter of fact, I'm rather glad all this happened.
I'm sure you are.
I'm finally getting to see the real Ben Martin. I'm just a little bit surprised that you don't have more strength of your convictions.
Mr. Sumner, please explain for the court your feelings for Courtney Carpenter Sumner.
I love Courtney very much.
Have you always loved her?
No?
Please explain.
Well, Courtney and I have been engaged unofficially since she was 16. I think at that time I probably didn't know what it really meant to love someone.
That's all changed?
Yes. I love Courtney more each day.
In spite of the pain and suffering that you've been through over the last several months?
Objection, Your Honor. I mean, this is all very touching, but the real issue here is Mr. Sumner's physical problem.
Mr. Webster.
Your Honor, I assure you I am arriving at point.
And do so quickly, please.
Thank you.
Overruled.
Mr. Sumner, would you just please explain for the court how your relationship with your wife has changed over the last few months?
Well, in spite of the distance that she's managed to put between us, my feelings for her continue to grow. I love Courtney like I've never loved any woman in my life. She does things for me that no woman could hope to do.
And yet, you did have a relationship with another woman just days before you were married. Now, how would you explain this seeming inconsistency?
Well, Dr. Phillips has already explained to the court my problems with sterility and impotence, and the fact that he had determined my impotence to be a psychological problem. Well, when I found myself in the situation where I could perform normally, I assumed that I was given an opportunity to work out my problems before I became Courtney's husband.
In other words, you saw this relationship simply as an opportunity to prove something to yourself.
Yes.
And you didn't have any feelings of love for this other woman?
No, none at all.
None of the same kind of feelings that you have for Courtney, certainly?
No.
Let me just ask you one more question. Now, the court has heard about the relationship that your wife had before you were married with Peter Davidson. Is it possible maybe that you were just jealous and you took a lover as revenge?
No, that isn't possible at all. I love Courtney too much to do something like that. I knew if she found out about my indiscretion, it would hurt her deeply. And, it will never happen again.
Thank you, Mr. Sumner. That's all, Your Honor.
Mr. Webster, may I say something?
Objection, Your Honor. This is not a public speaking class we're running.
Overruled. I'm interested in Mr. Sumner's remarks.
But, Your Honor, I think that...
Overruled. Please, go ahead, Mr. Sumner.
Thank you, sir. I just would like to say how truthfully sorry I am that this ever happened. And that all I would like is a chance to establish my marriage with my wife.
Is that all?
Yes.
Very well. Mr. Myers, your witness.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Well, Mr. Sumner, so you are sorry, huh? That's all very touching. I just wonder, though, why, if you are so very sorry, you waited until now to tell anyone about this little incident?
Well, as I explained before, I was hoping that Courtney would never need to know.
Well, I understand that. I was wondering more about Dr. Phillips.
Well, the reason I didn't tell Dr. Phillips is because we had had a problem with confidentiality earlier, and I was afraid the same thing might happen again. Courtney's feelings
just
mean
answer the question, Mr. Sumner. That'll be fine. Now, tell me this. If your little indiscretion, as you call it, was such a success, why have you not been able to consummate your marriage with the woman who, in your own words, means more to you than anyone?
Because Courtney and I haven't had the time.
Oh, come on, Mr. Sumner, really? Do you expect us to believe that you haven't had one opportunity to be alone? That you haven't had one chance to show your love for her physically?
That's not exactly what I meant.
Well, then what? I mean, in your own confession, you said that you spent time alone with your wife. And according to her testimony, the two of you were together alone for the express purpose of intimacy, and each time there was a notable lack of success.
Oh, I object, Your Honor. The counsel is harassing the witness.
Sustained.
All right, Mr. Sumner, tell me this. If you are so confident of your abilities, why did you find it necessary to suggest to Courtney that if you got back together again, the two of you would be able to have a child through the process of artificial insemination?
I only told Courtney that because she'd expressed an interest in starting a family right away. Certainly, once we were back together again, that would not be necessary.
So it was another attempt at deceiving Courtney. It seems to me this whole relationship is built on deception.
Object, Your Honor.
I withdraw the comment, Your Honor. No more questions. Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to request a short recess. I've left some papers that are relevant to this case in the briefing room.
Granted.
Thank you.
Court will recess for 5 minutes.
What do you think?
I felt worse. But I felt a lot better.
Scared me.
What are you doing here? Oh, no. Now, you're not the...
Vaughn's secret witness?
Oh, no. Oh, this is too much, really.
What are you laughing at?
The thought of you and Vaughn Sumner together. Oh, no. Oh, gosh, I wish I'd have known this 5 minutes ago. I was just on the phone to Courtney. I could have told her, and we would both have had a good laugh over this.
You just haven't gotten over your fixation with what other people think of you.
Fixation.
Yes, take your friends at the Chesterfield Clinic, for instance. Oh, there, you see? I didn't even say anything, and already you feel guilt. Why?
This doesn't have a thing to do with the clinic.
You just haven't learned to let your past alone. Those people at the clinic are jealous of you, and it makes you feel uncomfortable to be around them. You know, it's ironic. They're the ones who should be badly, not you. Jealousy is a very unattractive trait.
Tell me, how does all this business with Gene and the newspaper investigation fit into my fixation?
His crusading reminds you of the old Ben Martin, that soft, weak man who used to let the needs of others ride over his own needs. In the past, when he asked you to do something, you'd say yes, but then you'd feel taken advantage of as a result. Well, the trick is to learn how to say no without feeling any guilt. You have to learn to let go of those old commitments.
And join Brian on the golf course, the tennis courts, and the sauna? No, thank you.
Some people get too much of a good thing. No, I don't think you should be joining Brian.
Oh, well, thank you, Vanessa. I mean, I'm relieved.
I do think, though, that you should find out exactly what it is that makes Ben Martin happy. And I think you should pursue those things with the same vigor that you pursued the Chesterfield Clinic.
I'm sure Laurie would love that.
Laurie?
You especially want me to rethink that relationship, right?
I want you to find out what's best for Ben Martin. Whatever will make you the happiest, the most fulfilled, and the freest.
And let the chips fall wherever they may.
No. I think when you discover what these things are, you have to let the people around you know what they are. And if they can't accept what they are, then they should be free to find their own happiness.
You're suggesting I leave my wife.
I'm suggesting that you redefine your relationship, Ben. It's long overdue. If she can't accept that redefinition, then she'll just have to deal with the results.
And let me guess, Vanessa. You'd be happy to serve as my personal guide to happiness and freedom.
You're very presumptuous. I think it's time you left, Dr. Martin.
Lester, perhaps you'd better explain the board's decision to Mrs. Davidson again.
I don't need any more explaining, thank you.
Well, maybe you do need an explanation of the effects of negative PR on this hospital, Terry. Now, you present this sports center one way, and we are progressive innovators. Now, you slant it another way, like in that newspaper article, and we are short-sighted, insensitive idiots.
No matter how this is presented to the public, the Sports Medical Center eliminates the possibility of bringing the Rape Crisis Center into being for years. And that's what I'm concerned about, Lester.
Mrs. Davidson, the sports center will bring revenue to this city. Revenue that could be used to fund your interests.
I'm sorry, Mr. Wainwright. I've worked for this center too long. Offering me a vague promise of the future just isn't acceptable.
Acceptable or not, that's all you're going to get. Lester, I've got to call on a potential contributor. Of course, he might not let me in his office if he's seen that article. I trust you can take care of things here.
Oh, Terry. I can't tell you how unhappy this makes me. I have one warning for you. When you marry into the Phillips family, remember that newspaper reporting is your stepdaughter's job, not yours.
You know, getting Webster to believe it was a pretty good trick. But the Honorable Judge Sawyer is never, ever going to buy it. I mean, he will probably grant the annulment with no deliberation.
Your laughter sounds a little forced to me.
Oh, no, not at all, lover. No, you know, I'm going to enjoy getting you up on the stand just as much as I did getting Vaughn.
Okay, Tina, time's getting close. I see you have found my witness. Tina,
yeah.
Don't say another word.
No, I think it's time for you to start doing some talking there, Harold. Yeah, I think you should tell our friend Tina what a job I did on Vaughn when he was on the stand. Maybe you should prepare the secret witness here for the same fate.
Ms. Brubaker, would you please explain for us the circumstances under which you and Mr. Sumner got together on that first evening when you were intimate?
I met him at the huddle. I'd been there a while when he found me.
He found you.
Yes. Well, he knew I spent a lot of time there.
See, what was his emotional state at that time?
He was very upset.
Did he tell you why?
Yes. He and Courtney had had another fight. Something about starting a family after they got married.
So you knew that Courtney and Vaughn Sumner were going to be married in a few days?
Yes.
You also knew about the troubles that they've been having?
Yes. Well, I knew that Courtney didn't really love him. You see, I mean, I've known Courtney almost since she first came to Kingsley. I knew what Vaughn was just finding out about her. She can be disagreeable and downright cold sometimes.
Objection, Your Honor. This is all opinion on the witness's part and is not relevant to the question.
Sustained. Mr. Webster, please redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Brubaker, did you and Vaughn discuss Courtney's response to him?
Yes, well, Vaughn confessed some of his fears of expressing his love to her. I told him that if he was having problems warming up to Courtney, that it might not be entirely his fault.
Now, what in the world would bring you to such a conclusion?
Like I said, Courtney. She's so hard-headed, so cold. I told Vaughn not to blame himself for all their problems.
What was his reaction to that?
Well, he didn't like me talking about Courtney that way. But at the same time, I don't think it had ever occurred to him that maybe Courtney was at fault, too.
Objection, Your Honor. Would you please direct the witness to answer only the question?
Objection overruled. Continue, Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please tell me how you got from the huddle to your dormitory room.
It just happened. I was kind to Vaughn, interested in his feelings. He was comfortable. Maybe for the first time in his life.
Objection.
Objection sustained. Miss Brubaker, the court is only interested in the facts.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but what happened was emotional, not based on mechanical facts and events.
Just the facts, Miss Brubaker.
Yes, sir. I invited Vaughn to my room. He agreed. When we got there, things got...
Just say it, Miss Brubaker.
Vaughn got comfortable, relaxed. Things just started happening.
Things?
He had feelings that he'd never had before. He made love to me.
Thank you, Miss Brubaker. That is all, Your Honor.
No, it isn't.
I beg your pardon.
I think something else needs to be said.
Miss Brubaker, I don't recall there being anything else that needs to be
Your Honor,
shared.
please, I think something else needs to be said.
No, the court isn't interested in any speculation, Miss Brubaker.
This isn't anything like that.
All right, go ahead.
Your Honor, I would like to remind Miss Brubaker that she's still under oath, and further, that as Mr. Sumner's attorney, I have asked all the questions that need to be asked.
I think the matter is out of your hands, Mr. Webster. Go on, young lady.
I'm pregnant with Vaughn's child.